What if there were no men? What would happen to our planet without men? There is no simple answer to this question because such a situation is almost impossible to imagine. Today, there are more than 7 billion people on the Earth, of which women are slightly more than half. It's quite difficult to try to figure out what would happen if the stronger half of humanity suddenly vanished. But we will try. If all men had disappeared long before our present era, human civilization probably would not have emerged. Christ would not have been born. Wars would not have started and ended. Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan would not have become legendary conquerors. If we begin our mental experiment from the 13th century, if all men had disappeared then, the world would never have read Voltaire's thoughts, seen Leonardo da Vinci's masterpieces. Beethoven would not have written his Moonlight Sonata, and Albert Einstein would never become a brilliant physicist. Perhaps there would have been no physics to speak of, as such revolutionary figures as Schrödinger, Tesla, and Feynman would never have existed. What if tomorrow there were some monstrous epidemic that would leave our planet without men? Then what? As Dr. Ian Malcolm said in the movie Jurassic Park, life will find a way. It wouldn't take much time. First, the women of the Earth would get down to the business of trying to repopulate the planet. Luckily, multiple samples of the male seed are stored in cryochambers around the world, and artificial insemination would begin immediately everywhere. At the same time, there would be a certain number of already pregnant women spread across the planet. There would be new children, and men would, eventually, return to their affairs once again. But there wouldn't be so many of them. A serious difference in the ratio of the sexes would soon become apparent. There would be only one boy for every 2,000 girls. Theoretically, pluripotent stem cells can become any cell of the human body. With the help of shrewd manipulations, some sort of cloning might be possible, though these techniques have not yet been perfected. Regardless, women could quickly put the production of new males onto the fast track. After 16 years, in the worst-case scenario, the male population will amount to about 100,000 individuals. In another 16 years, there will be 1 million men all over the world. Yes, this will not be nearly enough to raise a new generation of air traffic controllers, nuclear engineers, or quantum physicists. And of course, the world will be an entirely different place. But if this group can survive the first 5 generations, then the planet will be saved. It will require careful birth control and, possibly, genetic manipulation to avoid defective gene duplication and subsequent degeneration. Hundreds of years will pass and everything will be fine. But if no man is ever born again, the Earth will change dramatically. Historically, many occupations have become well established precisely because men like them. In a few decades or centuries, in the absence of the larger, bulkier sex, football, nuclear weapons, fishing, and films about war might disappear altogether. There will be nobody who wants to make war films and nobody to watch them either. Women will, of course, in many areas of life, have to take on the roles previously filled by men. They will work in dirty factories and steel mills and sit behind the wheels of trucks. And the disappearance of 3.5 billion people will not pass unnoticed for the economy. Remaining on the planet, the perfect sex will have to build a hierarchy of power and assume the work of all financial, energy, and other systems so that chaos does not reign. Someone will have to become miners, builders and construction workers, drivers and firemen. Many women will become more muscular, and most will not disdain genetic manipulation. After all, someone has to do the heavy lifting. What we think of as classical women's roles in the new world, oddly enough, will likely be diminished. It is difficult to imagine ever fashionable and beautifully painted girls in a world without men. Perhaps there will be a bit less cunning, and for that, there will be little pity. Eventually, after less than a year, children will cease to be born, even girls. Scientifically speaking, women will have to come up with a way to continue reproducing the feminine gender without live male participation. It's possible that the cloning of male spermatozoa could help, as male chromosomes are needed for the conception of both males and females. But there is another way: same-sex conception. In this extreme case, the only way to preserve the human race would be large-scale cloning of the remaining women. And if this doesn't work, then women, the eternal beautiful half of human couples, will be left to their own devices.